Sleeping Cerberus ASMR, and it was just over a year ago that I made my first video, and it was doing a little unboxing of some of the native flower seeds that I bought from Prairie Moon Nursery. So I thought it would be fitting 1 year later to do another one of these. So every time I order seeds, I kind of think that I have enough, and I basically have all the ones that I would want, but as the year goes on, I think of new plants that I wanted to try and go outside of my normal comfort zone. So these seeds are some that you may not have tried before, so I'm going to give them a shot in this coming year. I'm going to do some direct sowing and some winter sowing in jugs, and we'll see how they do. But without further ado, let's get into this. So, first up we have purple false foxglove. So this is an annual native flower, and if you're unfamiliar, what that means is it will complete its whole life cycle in 1 year. So you will sow the seeds, they will grow and flower and set seed, and then that plant will be done. And I have a pretty big lack of native annuals, so I wanted to up my annual native wildflower game this year. So this particular plant likes wet to medium soils in full to part sun conditions, and it will bloom between August and September with a height of 4 feet. That's kind of a cool picture. It looks like it already had some spider or some kind of insect growing on it when they took this picture. And on the back, it'll tell you how many seeds. So there's about 300 seeds in this packet. So these are very tiny. I mean, it barely feels like there's anything in there. So these are going to be probably like just very, very tiny seeds, more like dust. So if you get some like this, you're going to want to be careful not to accidentally just dump them all in one spot. So, yeah, that's the first one up. Okay. Next up, continuing the similar theme, this is another annual that I'm going to be trying this year. This is Venus's Looking Glass. just one that likes more wet conditions. This plant prefers dry soil conditions. And this one is a little bit shorter at 2 feet. So, wow, so there's 750 seeds approximately in this packet. So, this might be one where sometimes for the really small seeds, there's going to be a tiny packet within this to keep the seeds all together. Yeah, very excited to add this to my collection. I'm really excited about this one. This was new to me when I saw it. This is pink turtlehead, and I have the white turtlehead in my garden that I'm growing from a bare root, and I really think that's a cool plant. So this is, the color where it has like the darker point and it goes into a lighter pink into like a white that looks so cool. So I know, just like the white turtlehead, this prefers the more wet conditions, and these are typically rabbit resistant, at least when they're established. I've noticed that some of my plants when they're young, even like my swamp milkweed and some of my other ones will get nibbled as they're coming up out of the ground, so nothing is truly safe if the rabbits or deer are hungry enough. So when you're first getting little sprouts, you may need to protect them if you have a lot of pressure in your area. But yeah, look at that. That's a great picture. It's got a little bumblebee trying to work its way into basically the mouth of the turtle. Okay, so this is one that I'm going outside of my comfort zone a little bit because thistles tend to have a bit of a bad reputation, but my understanding is a lot of that is because of the non-native thistles that are extremely aggressive, that are even more prickly than the native thistles. So the native thistles will have on the underside of the leaf will be like a white color, very light color to the underside to help show that it is a native thistle. And these are a biennial flower. And what that means is the first year it is going to be just, leaves growing and working on the root structure. And then the second year you will get these gorgeous flowers that are just absolute pollinator magnets. And that second year it will create new seeds, and then that plant will be done. So this will take a couple years to see, but because of living in an HOA, I'm going to have to tuck this in the back so people don't freak out. But I'm really excited to try something a little different. And when you see videos fields of thistles. They're just covered in pollinators, and then the goldfinches like to come and pick at the seeds when the flowers are done. So it'll be a couple years before I get to see it, but I know it'll be worth it if I am successful. Yeah, so it actually says, this is kind of what I was talking about. Native thistles tend to suffer from the same bad reputation as weedy varieties. You can distinguish this goldfinch favorite by the downy white underside of the foliage and the less prickly leaves. Individual plants are relatively short-lived but readily spread by seed. So that's another thing. The non-native thistles will typically spread by underground roots called rhizomes, and this one will stay where I put it. And of course, because it's so prickly, it should be resistant to the deer and the rabbits that I have to deal with. Yeah, so 6 feet tall. This will be good in the back of the garden beds. Keep it away from the nosy neighbors that you might have in your area. So I'll find a little hidden spot in the back to let this have a chance to grow. Okay, next up we have large flowered Cara. This is another biennial plant that I've heard the leaves of this one, while it's not in bloom, can look pretty weedy. So this would be another one that I'm going to tuck in the back. But I've seen some other varieties of this that just the way they sway and move in the wind when they're in bloom is just majestic. So I'm really excited to give this one a chance. And totally different from everything else that I'm growing right now. This looks like it's pretty adaptable from very dry all the way up to medium wet. So basically anything other than like a swamp, this will be able to grow in. And another plant that's fairly tall at 6 feet, so it'll be good for the back of the border. About 100 seeds in this one. I can feel that they're quite a bit bigger than some of the tiny seeds in the other packets. So very, very excited for this one. And then we have one more seed packet to look at. This is Fire Pink. And this is in the same family as the Royal Catchfly, if you're familiar with that plant. And I've tried to grow that one from seed with very low success, so I wanted to give this family of plants one more chance because I'm in love with the way these blooms look, and it has the sticky stems that its cousin also has. Let's see, okay, so a couple of the seed packets have a little bit more information. So this says Fire Pink, a blushing rosy bloom is a rare red for the early season native garden. These trumpeting flowers are a spectacular draw for hummingbirds and butterflies. Secretes a sticky residue along its stems and flowerheads to prevent ants and other crawling insects from stealing its nectar. Thrives in some of the most inhospitable soils, but is rather short-lived. Resows seeds to maintain a vigorous population. So this is what's known as a short-lived perennial. So this one will come back for a few years, but typically will diminish in the garden. And so it's a good idea to let it seed itself a little bit each year so you have plants growing every year. But yeah, just super excited to have this one in the garden, and hopefully I have a little bit better luck than the royal catchfly. So these are the 6 new seeds that I add to my collection, which I have a small portion of my collection right here to give an idea of my seed collection. And if you're anything like me, it's seemingly like you can just never have enough seeds and you always want to try something new. So I wonder, maybe one time I'll kind of go through this and try to organize it a little bit, because my seeds aren't really organized in any particular fashion right now. Okay, so here is what I was talking about. You can see the similarities there. But yeah, just so many great plants. So if you're interested in me going through these one time, let me know. So until the next one,